What's up, everyone? Welcome to another exciting episode of Retro Encounter. As almost always, I'm Josh Curry. With me is Peter Triezenberg.
Hi there.
Mike Sollosi.
Hello, everybody.
And Marcos Gaspar.
Hey, everyone.
So we are here for the exciting part 2 of the Essential 10, where we're going to we came up with part 1, which you should listen to before you listen to this, most likely. We took 46, 47 games down to 20. Now we're into the final 20, and we're going to edge these down to a final list of 10, and maybe our ranking them?
We'll see how that getting them down to 10 goes first before we decide to rank them or not.
The important thing is, though, we're going to get down to 10 games. I guess a good caveat before everybody gets really upset, these are 10 games that collectively of the four of us agree that we both really enjoy and also think are very important for people to play. Obviously, you'll have your own opinions.
19 of the 20, maybe, but all right, keep going.
18 of the 20.
17 of the 20.
I didn't know you guys hated Mass Effect 2 that much. Jeez.
It's probably like the second best game on the list.
All right, so yeah.
But, so now that we're already off to a great start.
Yeah, so we're going to whittle these down. Can we get Mike? Can you do your auctioneer voice and rattle through the 20 again?
All right, quick rundown of the 20 remaining games in alphabetical order. Dot Hat Infection, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, Bastion, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger, Diablo 3, Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Alliance, Final Fantasy 6, Grandia, Kingdom Hearts, Mass Effect 2, Persona 3 Fest, Persona 4 Golden, Skies of Arcadia, Spelunky, Steambot Chronicles, Wild Arms 3, Xenoblade Chronicles, Zelda Twilight Princess. Did I say Xenoblade Chronicles twice? No,
you didn't.
Okay. No, okay, Steambot Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles are right next to each other. Okay, so...
that would be confusing.
Yeah.
Too many Chronicles. All right.
Very different
so
games.
many Chronicles.
Okay.
Can we replace Kingdom Hearts with, like, Dark Chronicle?
Can we replace Zelda with an actually good Zelda game? I'm fine with a Zelda game being on the list. Can we put a good one up?
Twilight Princess is the best.
Yeah.
The best Zelda game. What are you talking about, man?
Alright, so last time around the format was we went around and we locked a game, and then we went around and deleted a game for each person. We kept alternating until we got to this list. We don't think it's really smart to do that.
No.
Locking is too powerful at this point, and we could slip in some games that probably collectively wouldn't be able to agree on. So it's going to be much closer to, we need 3 votes yes, 3 votes no, to either add or delete a game to the top 10. And that'll still be a little fluid towards that end, probably, as we kind of flesh out that final 10. But to start on a positive note, I think we're going to kind of just go through some of the games I think that all of us can probably agree belong on the top 10. I think they're just
all right.
safe. So I think we can all agree that one of the easy locks is Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, 100. I think 100% Chrono
I'm
Trigger
voting
is
yes. Okay, so all of us.
Cool with that.
All of us agree.
No, not Chrono Cross.
That's
I wonder who did that.
I mean, I believe Chrono Cross is a good game too, but we should jump to the one that everyone loves first.
I think that's a really easy one. That's universally considered one of the best RPGs of all time.
Okay, and I love Chrono Trigger. It's probably my favorite game of all time. I definitely vote yes. So are all of us in agreement that Chrono Trigger is moving on to the final 10?
Yeah, that's a masterpiece. That's super
cool.
easy.
Sweet.
I guess
start.
Especially now that I've beaten Setsuna, I just appreciate how good Chrono Trigger on its own actually is all the more.
Sure, all right.
So the next two, I think we can all agree that Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy 6 belong on the list, but we need to have a discussion on whether or not we think it's fair to have 2 Final Fantasy games in the top 10.
I said this before we started recording. I think that we should keep it to 1 per franchise. That's not a knock against either game. Tactics is great. 6 is great. Personally, if it came down between the 2, I would vote 6. But I will leave that to you guys.
So here's my general thought about it. I understand what you're saying, and I'm willing to have possibly that conversation about Persona 3 and 4. Because there are similarities to it.
Yeah.
My issue with Tactics and 6 is they're such different games. This isn't a conversation of 6 and 9 or 6 and 10 or 6 and 4. Tactics is such a vastly different game.
Yeah, Final Fantasy VI is a traditional Final Fantasy game. The best one in my opinion, but I mean, it was on my original list, so whatever. But Final Fantasy Tactics is a completely different kind of game.
Right.
It's made with a different team than FF6. It's the former Quest guys that went on to work on Vagrant Story and 12, and not the traditional Final Fantasy team that worked on the series through 9, or through 10 even. So it's like FF6 and FF Tactics are different styles of game, different teams, different almost anything. While Persona 3, like Josh mentioned, Persona 3 and 4 have a lot of similarities. So I don't agree with the one franchise per rule idea, but I don't mind saving FF6 and FF Tactics for a later discussion. That's fine if you guys don't want to all vote on them yet. But I think I don't like the idea of a one per franchise rule. We might subconsciously enforce our own one per franchise rules.
Right.
If we if say some of us want Persona 3 and not 4, and some of us want 4 and not 3, but I don't think we should make that official.
Right, so before we move on to Persona, are we agreeing to vote on 6 and Tactics right now? I think everybody's kind of in agreement that both of them are really good games.
I think 6 100%.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
I would like both to be on the top 10, but I am willing to discuss them further if that's what the group wants.
Yeah, since our last podcast, because I'll really admit I've never played 6.
Right. Oh, right.
And so after the last podcast, I really delved into how the different characters, the general storyline,
Just doing research.
some of the turns that happen, how you're able to develop your characters, the whole mythos with how there is magic involved with the Espers and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it really, really fascinating.
6 is a really fully featured RPG. It really is like an exemplary game from its era.
The first online community I ever joined was a Final Fantasy VI website that I ended up writing for. It's it is such a good realization of what Final Fantasy is, and takes elements of older Final Fantasy games like classes and summons, and incorporates them and sort of homogenizes them in a way that it's the first Final Fantasy game that has a ton of shared skills and a ton of unique skills, and which sort of paves the way for the future of the series. Plus there's 12 main characters and 2 secret characters, with all 14 being really interesting, fun joints. And
that's really rare, like for RPGs with large casts like that. I think I remember reading somewhere. I don't remember if there's any. I don't know if there's any truth to this, but apparently after they finished development on 6, like Sakaguchi, there was like a party with the devs, and Sakaguchi was like tearfully said to the group that they had just made the best game of all time, and strong feelings from the developers. I think it reflects well in the game itself.
Yeah, I don't know how true that story is, but it's my favorite Final Fantasy game, and I absolutely adore almost everything about it.
So Marcos, thumbs up from you too? It seems like we have 3 yeses.
For Final Fantasy VI, absolutely. Okay. Great game, great music. Love the story.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack is killer too. It really is.
Absolutely.
Dancing Mad, baby.
Awesome.
I'm more of an Aria de Mezzo Caratere guy myself, but
that's a good one. I love the Black Mages cover of Dancing Mad. It's like one of my most played songs in my iTunes library.
I saw Uematsu and his band play that at MagFest 2 years ago. It was pretty
jealous.
dope.
Jealous.
Okay, so we were able to agree on 6. Let's roll into Tactics. Let's pull the Band-Aid off and do it right away. Tactics is one of my favorite games of all time. Probably, I don't usually, and this is where, like, back to Peter's original point, I don't even count it as a Final Fantasy game. It doesn't really go in my mind that way. But if I were to be honest and include it with the other games, it's probably my favorite Final Fantasy game of all time.
It's my second favorite after 6.
It is truly amazing. And we talked about this on the podcast. I go insane when I play that game. The hours that I just like slip away and the things I'm willing to do.
You were on fire.
And it's just one of those things, like, I'll feel like I'm behind, and all of a sudden I'll look and be like, oh, I'm probably over-leveled, have this crazy thing, and I did this, and I haven't progressed, and all of a sudden the game's over, and then I freak out and start over again. I have lost hundreds of hours to that game, I feel like, at this point in my life.
For me, as I mean, you guys know, the first time I played Tactics was for that retro podcast, and I do really like the game. I just don't think I have the same sort of attachment to it that you all might. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I had some minor issues with the early game, like getting used to it. I feel like if I played it again, I'd probably be a lot warmer to it because I'm used to it.
It was much easier the second time I played it.
Yeah, so like I feel like one of these days I'm going to revisit it, and then it'll be like one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah,
but
it's a little unusual how maybe the hardest part of Final Fantasy Tactics, outside of weirdo end game challenges, is the first chapter.
Yeah,
because you don't really have all of your skills and your characters in line, and maybe you're not totally sure what you're doing if it's your first time playing. So it's, I mean, usually you think of a perfect difficulty curve of a game being slightly more challenging as it continues, but for Final Fantasy Tactics, it's almost the opposite. And it's the first. I love strategy RPGs. I have put hundreds of hours into Disgaea and Fire Emblem, and even like Jeanne d'Arc for the PSP. I really like strategy RPGs, and Final Fantasy Tactics was my first one, and is sort of, at least in my mind, the gold standard for that whole subgenre. I love it. I would like for it to be in the final top 10. But I'm more attached to FF6, I think. To FF Tactics is a great story and characters as well, but it's like my vote is yes, but I'm not as zealously holding on to that yes as I would for other games.
I guess it's down to you. It's down to you then, Marcos.
Wait, so Peter, are you officially a no or a pass?
No, I'm a wait. I will
Okay.
I will go with whatever you guys.
Stupid wait
Sure.
vote. I hate you so much, Mike. Why did you even make that an option?
Because here's the thing: you have two yeses, and if Marcos's vote decides it. Like,
Marcos, what's your decision?
For Final Fantasy Tactics, War of the Lions. I was already experienced with tactics games prior to this, and when I played this for the first time, it's true that this left a strong impression on me. I was really impressed on just the game overall. However, this game was a little rough on me when I first started it. I don't remember a lot of fond memories of taking doing like one of the first missions and just getting my whole party wiped. And then I just understood, I can just grind until I'm the perfect soldier, and then just rush through the whole game.
Yeah, it's usually, for me, it's usually Dorder Trade City. The third stage is the first wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember getting wasted there, and I was like, this is not what I was expecting. And then when I finally did that, and then got to the the second fight with the Zodiac Stones. I forget who it is. Everyone knows it because everyone gets wasted.
Wygraph?
Yeah, it's the guy that freaking wait.
That fight
absolutely.
sucks.
The fight was so easy the second time through.
If you abuse yell or scream, it's easy. But if you don't know what you're doing and and the reinforcements come as a surprise, it's very, very rough.
The first time through was killer. It was awful for me.
Yeah, it was terrible for me. And there were those missions where they come right after another, or like that Warcraft fight where it's two battles in one. It's like, well then.
Yeah,
it's two battles in one, and I think it's also like the third fight in a 4 straight fight thing, because the fourth one is the rooftop one, and you have to do like two Castle Gates fights at the beginning. It's those we don't need to get into specifics, but those consecutive fights can be a pain in the rear.
Well, listening to this conversation, then can we all agree that the game has issues?
Sure.
I don't think so, but I can see where you guys are coming from.
It was on my list originally, but I freely admit it has issues.
Right, and that's one of those things where you're allowed to love something and still like acknowledge its flaws. But I guess I'm willing to go with whatever you guys go for whether or not it makes the top 10. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other.
So let's add that to the maybe list for now.
Yeah, let's move on because those are going to be here all night.
All right, so we're waiting on that. Do we want to delve into personas right away, or do we want to
Why
table
not?
that? For...
It's up to you, man. We gotta get to all of these eventually.
We can jump into Persona.
I think, and I legitimately think both games belong. But if we're gonna go with Peter's ruling of only one, I think it has to be Persona 4.
I mean, we don't have a rule. I mean, no, we don't really have a ruling, but I will. I'm going to talk. I want. Can I talk Persona 3 real quick? Because
Sure.
that was on my list. I love both 3 and 4. I don't think either of them are I love, like I said, I love both those games. 3 was my first SMT game, so I feel like I am a little predisposed towards it in that regard. But at the same time, having played 4 twice now, I don't know. I like three's characters. I really like the setup and the storyline better. I like the idea of the shadows and
I love
Tartarus
the
and
evokers.
the evokers is a really cool visual image, even if it isn't like quite what like it is just that it's a visual image, but I think it's very effective.
I think it's a visual image that's effective for the first hour, and then you're desensitized to it, and it becomes just what you do
I mean,
after
yeah,
a while.
because and yeah, but that's like pretty much inevitable when you're playing a 70-hour long RPG, and both these games are monsters in terms of length. I like the Strega villains. I like the cohesiveness of the music, how those main motifs come in. I like how the overall theme of the game is just filled with death and people learning how to accept their own mortality. I just Persona 3 resonates really strongly with me, and I love 4. Don't get me wrong. I think if you took 3 and gave it forced combat, which they kind of did with P3P, but the port also is missing a few features, then you'd have probably my favorite game ever. But and 4 makes a bevy of other improvements. I'm not going to deny that, but I like I said, I really like Fess.
I think at the end of the day, Persona 4 makes improvements in almost every regard on Persona 3. And so I think we are agreeing that Persona 4 is, in quotes,
Yeah, I think
better. But I think aesthetically and design choices, specifically with the characters and some of those storylines, I think 3 really shines. And I think that the whole mood of it is so effective.
that's true. Also, and one last point before I let everyone else like give their thing. I think 3 hasn't quite been as done to death as 4, and that's totally outside the realm of the game's quality. But like outside of their like yes, characters from 3 were in the fighting games and stuff, but I feel like 4 has been just kind of like run into the ground lately, and we're all waiting for Persona 5 to come along and repeat the process. But that's just me. Anyway.
No, that's a lot of people. I mean, I agree that 4 has been overexposed, even though I mean, really, 4's overexposure has gone hand in hand with 3's for everything except for Dancing All Night.
Fair enough.
But I understand preferring the characters or motifs of Persona 3 because that's very, very subjective on who your favorite character, what your favorite storyline parts are. But I like 4's better. I think that it's really effective how each character in 4, other than well, maybe including the MC even, have a dedicated dungeon and optional dialogue tree that dives deeper into each of their individual characters and forces them into acknowledging their own flaws and addressing the worst parts of themselves. And also, the villain of 4 is, because it's a mystery and because in Persona 3 the main villain doesn't really rear its head until the last quarter of the game, and the Strega villains aren't very present. You only see them like maybe every other month, and
they aren't very present, but they are very impactful when they do appear.
I don't think so. I mean, shirtless Jesus weird dude with a gun, great.
Yeah, but sure. That's again where I think he was a really thematically interesting villain, because if you think about what they are, is like, again, they're like people who they're basically just suicidal, and it goes in hand with like the themes of the game. And again, they do kill a party member, and that didn't happen, and that was still a pretty big thing. That didn't happen in 4.
Nanako in 4 almost ruined
I will
my
give
life.
it at the moment. Yeah, that moment, one of my roommates was in the room with me when I was playing that scene, and he was just like, "Oh wow,
that hurt so bad."
It is painful.
Like it literally felt like my kind of sort of sister was dying. Like that's one of the most emotional moments I've ever had in a video game.
Marcos, do you want to talk?
Marcos,
Sorry.
I don't think Marcos has played a Persona game before.
So yeah, I've only played probably at this point the first half hour of Persona 4, and yeah, that game's pretty fun.
Yeah.
I have not seen Persona 3, but I mean, it looks like a pretty cool game, you know. But I think I still have to side with 4, just because I do like the presentation, the characters,
And
what
I
they
like.
introduced.
Yeah, I like 4's cheerier presentation a little more because I mean 3 attempts to be grim dark and doesn't always succeed in my opinion. And again, but I think the real reason that 4 is better than 3 is mechanically, which you alluded to a little bit earlier. But you can't directly control your other party members in Persona 3 FES. And
Yeah,
Persona
that is
4
frustrating.
Persona 4 gives you a lot more to do around the town, even though the town is smaller. There's way more activities and ways to strengthen your party and character and learn more about the world. Especially at night, because in Persona 3 they barely give you anything to do at night until you unlock the 2 night social links, which are hard to unlock.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a good model of game, and I think Persona 4 is better than Persona 3 because they were able to learn from the Persona 3 development experience. But I mean, I've beaten Persona 3 FES twice and Persona 4 Golden. I've beaten Persona 4 PS2 twice and Persona 4 Golden twice, but 4 times total. So I mean, my stance is clear. Persona 4 is my favorite RPG of the past 15 years or so, and I would rather play it a fifth time than go back to 3, especially if it's the FES version where I can't control my side characters.
Yeah, I mean, if I replay 3 ever again, it's probably going to be P3P, but...
Now, what I really want is like a PC version of Persona 3 that has the P3P content and P3 FES visuals and extras.
I've been wanting a Vita version of that ever since P4G.
Yeah, I'd love something like that. Oh, you think that Sony's going to make another handheld?
Yeah, it's not happening.
Yeah,
it's so not happening.
Yeah, so the Vita has had about the same sales as the Wii U, which is an embarrassment to Nintendo and Sony.
So Persona 4 on the list. No to 3 is what I'm hearing.
I think 3 maybe can wait, but I think Persona 4 yes, Persona 3 maybe if we don't feel as strongly about anything else.
Okay.
That's fine. I mean, I'll concede to the mechanic. Like I agree with you on the mechanical differences. It's just a question of I resonated more with 3's story and theming than I did with 4. Love both games. They're both fantastic.
I just like 4 better in almost every way. I don't think there are any characters as interesting as Kanji or Naoto in 3, for one.
I really like Minato, the protagonist's design.
You mean being totally aloof and just listening to your music all the time?
Yeah, I relate to that.
I don't know. I thought that Persona 4's main character had this like warmth to him and fun to him, and Persona 3 is like I never really got an idea what he was thinking. He was too blank a slate. But we don't need to talk about this anymore. We're wasting time on these that
we're 40 minutes in.
At this point, we're splitting hairs.
20 minutes in. Wow, I can't read. We're 20 minutes in on the 4 games that were supposed to be super easy to talk about. All right.
It just goes to show.
I honestly, for the rest of the list, I don't see any of them being easy locks. Does anybody feel like there's something that isn't for sure?
I'm gonna throw Xenoblade Chronicles out there.
I genuinely did not enjoy that game when I played it, but I will admit I did not play a lot of it.
I was gonna say, like, I get it. It gets off to a slow start, but I mean, if you get past that hump, and I don't even think it's that much of a hump, then you're in for one of the best JRPGs of the past generation. Like, I legitimately think Xenoblade Chronicles is a game that everyone should play.
And I'm willing to say yes, just because I've heard a bunch of people say that there's a lot of similarities between that and FF12.
It's a better version of FF12.
And I am not willing to agree that's better, but based on that alone, I'm willing to put it on the list and give it a yes from my side.
I really, really like Xenoblade Chronicles. I played it pretty recently. It was I finished it last year, I think. But I think it's the best Wii RPG and a very, very excellent game.
Well, it's
And
not
I
hard
didn't.
because most of the games on the Wii were bad.
All right, and not touching that, but the
Well,
I really liked Xenoblade Chronicles. You know what? I'll give it a yes as well. It's my favorite Wii game, and it has really excellent story and characters. The combat and action is mostly good. Sometimes it's problematic and gets in your way a little bit.
It's a little vague on how the combat system
Yeah.
actually works, which I think Xenoblade Chronicles X, which isn't on this list, but is probably my favorite game of this generation so far. That I think the game's combat ironed out a lot of the wrinkles in Chronicles.
Chronicles its combat feels even more like MMO combat than Final Fantasy XII's does, because it is almost literally about rotations and positioning.
Yeah,
And,
it's pretty much on drawing aggro and making sure you're in
Yeah.
the right position to attack. And
It depends on which character you're controlling, but there's a lot of interesting nuance to Xenoblade Chronicles' combat, even though you're not always in control all the time. But I really enjoyed it. It's my favorite Wii game. I played that thing for between 90 and 100 hours and enjoyed just about all of it, and didn't even finish. I probably did less than 60% of the quests, because it's just a staggering amount of content in that game.
it is a meaty game.
Marcus,
it's-
do you think it belongs on the list?
Because Xenoblade Chronicles X isn't on this list, I probably would allow this one to go on there because I made the mistake of playing X first before Xenoblade
Do we want to put
Chronicles.
X on the list instead?
No,
I'm
No,
cool with putting X
no.
on the list instead.
No.
no,
Yeah,
Are
all
you-
you
are
gotta do
you-
is just type in
just-
a little X after that.
no. Do you want to throw away the entire first episode?
Sure, we can
By just adding-
re-record that again. That's fine.
No, God.
No, but for this for like one of the top like Wii games, I do agree that this was one of those pleasant games I played on there. It's a shame that I played it after X because then when I went to that battle system, I was like, ugh, this is very wooden compared to the X. But overall, I like the atmosphere.
It's
So-
a good game, and it's too bad that you only played the beginning, Josh, because I'm going to say something that I hate. I hate myself for saying this every time I say it, but you really got to play past the first couple hours. Because even though if it feels like you're throwing those hours away, I'm sorry, but it once the game opens up, it becomes awesome. And
I think it starts out awesome. That opening cutscene and stuff is like
yes, but
that
I
got
think
me
The
jazzed.
scene is fine, but then you actually have to play the game, which is not enjoyable.
no, the opening scene's good, but I think it's a little easy to get stuck in that first town.
Okay, I need to know, Josh. How did you make it past the first hour of 12 then?
I found 12's world more interesting.
Yeah. So
Xenoblade's in.
Xenoblade is in.
So it's going the other direction instead of for sure yeses. I think there's one for sure no, and I think there's a second really good chance of a for sure no on this list. One very obviously is Chrono Cross. And I say very obviously because we almost didn't finish part 1 because we weren't willing to put it on the top 20. So for it to barely make the top 20 and then somehow squeak into the top 10 seems absurd to me.
I'm voting yes on Chrono Cross
Shocker.
for the sake of it.
I am
But-
voting no on Chrono
I'm
Cross.
voting a hard no. Not just a no, a hard no.
Okay, so I want to know because I've said last episode I've pretty much gone pretty in depth on this. I think Chrono Cross is a brilliant sequel. I understand why people don't like it because it's different, but I think again, and this is me approaching a game from a thematic standpoint and not a mechanical one. I think it is the perfect example to Trigger's storyline. It continues off of Trigger in really interesting ways that you might not have expected, but that are really interesting nonetheless.
Can I throw
So-
your own words in your own face? Is that okay?
Throw my words in my face so I can rebut them as well.
Chrono Cross is the same series as Chrono Trigger, and we shouldn't have two games in the same series on the list.
You already shot. Okay, so you're going to shoot down Tactics before it even starts, then?
Tactics isn't in the same series.
Yeah, it is.
It says Final Fantasy right there, Josh. Okay, well,
Sorry, man.
anyway, now
that argument does not hold water.
Yeah, I like Chrono Cross. It's a good video game. I just and it has one of the best soundtracks in any video game. But
Absolutely.
A game is so much more than a soundtrack, though.
I know. Maybe let me finish speaking, Josh.
No.
I don't think it deserves to be on a list of 10 essential must-play RPGs. It's a good RPG. It's also a little bit muddled story-wise. It's impossible to sort of get a whole view of the cast or the events of the game, or even sort of the motivations of major characters unless you play it multiple times or through multiple saves. And that bothers me a little bit. Also, the combat is super uneven and weird. And I think requires advanced planning if you sort of want to get the party that you want in that game. I have a lot of issues with Chrono Cross, even though it's beautiful and interesting, and some people refuse to acknowledge that it's a sequel to Chrono Trigger, but it totally is. It addresses end game and post game parts of Chrono Trigger specifically, and it's a good game. I just don't think it's one of my favorites or a must-play RPG, and ultimately we are making a list of 10 favorite must-play RPGs, so I vote no.
That's, at the end of the day, my biggest thing is it can be a good game, and hey, it made the top 20, which is kind of impressive. Like, it's surrounded by really good games, but at the end of the day, it is not, I don't think it's a top 10 game.
My only I'm like I said, I'm not. This isn't one I'm gonna like fight really hard for. I do think that if you, I'm just gonna throw out there that I think that if you play Trigger, you should play Cross.
That's fine, but that doesn't mean it's essential. It means Trigger's essential.
I'm not gonna agree with that. I think play Chrono Cross if you're interested in it, but I think Chrono Trigger is a must play, and Chrono Cross isn't necessarily a must play.
What do you think,
for this
Marcos?
one, I was going to follow up with that because I really love Chrono Cross. Like, with even good music aside, and like other things, I just enjoyed the story, and with it being like, diving into later on the repercussions of like the actions the heroes played in the past. But to get down to the nitty gritty of it, even though at first I felt like Chrono Cross must be on this list, I think if we were to make it a second set of like a second list of like
Less
games
essentials.
you should follow, second essentials, Volume 2. This one would definitely be on there because this is a game that people should follow up on when they play Chrono Trigger. Does it need to be on the list?
It does not stand. Okay, so. I'm sorry, Marcos. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I'm going to agree with you. I will say that, like, it does not stand alone.
Yeah, like if you would choose Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross, but like versus each other, which one you should play, like Chrono Trigger, and then jump to Chrono Cross.
So we can get rid of Cross, is what I'm hearing.
Sure.
Yes.
And
Vindicated from last episode.
you can't say we can see that one coming.
my job here is done.
Now, if Earthbound was on this list instead of Chrono Cross...
Yeah, then it'd been in the top 10.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely. We did disservice to Earthbound. A massive disservice to Earthbound.
I wouldn't be able to comment on Earthbound because they played the first hour.
That's water under the bridge, though, so maybe we should move on to another game before we're here all night.
Let's also talk about Twilight Princess and how it doesn't belong on this list.
Okay, so you remember how we were talking earlier about how you should really play to the point where the game actually starts, Josh?
Okay, no, screw that, because
Twilight Princess's first hour is not that bad.
Link Between Worlds, Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, easily,
Ocarina of Time
all four of them are better than Twilight Princess. I've played one of those games, and I still didn't enjoy it.
I don't agree with that. I think Twilight Princess has some of the best dungeons in the entire series. It has it's gameplay wise, it is Ocarina of Time's formula refined to nigh on perfection.
Mimicked to the point where, I mean, you might as well just play Ocarina of Time a second time.
Exactly.
It's Ocarina of Time, except bigger and better in every way imaginable.
Ocarina of Time has more dungeons and a longer story, and well, again, I guess both of them are multi-phase games. Well, I have finished Twilight Princess, and I think it's an all right Zelda game. It has great dungeons. It has pretty good combat, but its story is incomprehensible, and I think Midna's annoying.
Twilight Princess has the most fleshed out characters in Zelda.
You're joking.
No, I'm absolutely not, because I too just replayed it. I actually reviewed it for the site. Ding 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 for the HD version. Midna has I think Midna is a really interesting character. She's one of the few partner characters who has a legitimate character arc. How she grows from being just this kind of maniacal, cackling, I'm totally out for my own self-interest. How she learns to kind of care for the world of light, becomes more of a companion for Link. And Zant, and yes, Zant gets the short end of the stick by the end of the game, but up until that point, he even considering the twist that surrounds him, he's basically the Kylo Ren of Zelda. You
say that like that's a good thing.
That is a good thing, because Kylo Ren is the most interesting Star Wars villain we've ever seen in the movies. He's Anakin done right.
Man! Wow.
See the thing, like Kylo Ren, Zant is a petulant child who gained extraordinary power and lashed out using it because he felt resentful that he wasn't being recognized for it. And I'm sorry, that's a really interesting characterization for a villain, and it's not something you see every day. Because Zant's facade of power just kind of falls away by the end of the game, and you see the madness lurking beneath that mask. And I can't think of a single other Zelda game that has impacted me quite as much on a storytelling level than Twilight Princess. I'm sorry, like, it is probably their best go at storytelling.
Again, I don't know. The storytelling didn't grab me as much. I thought that, like, Zant was a bit of a, like, calling him a petulant child in attitude is fair, and you could also probably call him an agent of chaos kind of character whose motivations are a little capricious and like a Kefka or maybe even a Joker. But none of that resonated with me as much. I thought that Midna I didn't notice much character growth out of Midna at all. I thought that she was just a shadowy version of Navi that was a slightly annoying presence whose popular internet fandom I didn't totally understand. And again, I think that it has good. Again, a part of my issue are the mechanics of it, because I focus on RPG mechanics a lot. I know that's unusual a little bit for players of RPGs, but like I thought that the wolf stuff was almost all unnecessary. It felt like it was forcing you to play certain parts of the game blindfolded and encumbered in this wolf form before you could properly explore them like a Zelda game.
And I'm going to disagree with that, because again, this is me approaching it from a thematic and storytelling standpoint. Those sections are so atmospheric.
No, they're empty and
yes,
gray
they
green.
Are.
No,
Dude,
they're like you're playing them on an old school Game Boy with the contrast turned on too much.
Like I think the Twilight Realm just is super ethereal and really interesting, and the music is really chilling, and like
it just puts everything just through a weirdo filter. Like you have detective mode on Arkham Asylum the whole time.
Yeah, and it's unnerving. That's what I like about it.
No, it's boring.
You go in there and like the clouds are going super, like the clouds are all out of whack, and just the whole place
and the textures are gone from a lot of the areas,
and everything echoes.
You're in
awesome.
gimpy wolf form.
The wolf form's fine.
No, the wolf form does not add anything meaningful to the game. I think the wolf form was a waste of time. And also the individual dungeons were good, but I think that Twilight Princess may be worse than any other Zelda game at having its items self-contained within dungeons. Like the ball and chain is useful to get like 2 heart pieces and in its dungeon, and that's it.
That is fair enough.
The spinner in the desert dungeon is even worse. I don't know if you ever use it outside of the desert dungeon. Maybe
you do.
You probably do, and I just forget.
Yeah,
but
you do.
It felt like the dungeons are good, but felt really insular, and the world was all right for a Zelda game, but didn't feel meaningfully larger or more interesting than the ocean in Wind Waker, which I love, or the main setting in Ocarina of Time, which I love, or the much larger and denser overworld maps in Link to the Past or Link Between Worlds, which are my 2 favorite Zelda games.
Thank you, Mike, for pointing out another game on the list that is better than Twilight Princess Wind Waker.
I was gonna say,
so now we're up to 5 Zeldas that are better than this.
If somebody put Wind Waker on the list, I would have voted for it, but nobody did.
It was on the list, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't.
Was it?
No, the only people that put on Zelda games were Davey, Peter, and I, and those were Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and Link Between Worlds. And
all of them are better games than this.
Well, I don't.
Josh, give me a legitimate reason beyond you don't like the first hour.
I've played more than the first hour. I've tried playing that game 4 times. I've either fallen asleep or got dreadfully boring, and if it was my own disc and not somebody else's disc, I would have snapped the game in half. I legitimately hate this game. Ignoring the fact that Zelda's not even using the right hand that he's supposed to use.
On the Wii. No, he's always been left-handed.
On the Wii he's right-handed, and on the GameCube he's left-handed.
Yeah. On the Wii, he's right-handed.
Well, if you're playing it on Wii, that's your problem too.
Well, I also played it on GameCube, and I thought it was an all-right Zelda game, but I don't think it's one of the best Zelda games. I don't think it should be on a list of 10 essential must-play RPGs, and I admit I am a little bit bitter that this made the list instead of Link Between Worlds, which is my favorite Zelda game. So that is personally informing my opinion a little bit.
My honest opinion is it doesn't even fit on the top 5 of Zelda games, so how can it fit on a top 10 of overall for RPGs?
If I had to rank all the Zelda games, oh shoot, yeah, it wouldn't make my top 5 either. It would probably be in the 6, 7, 8 range.
It would be my second favorite.
And I feel like my opinion here isn't like a big surprising thing. If you go on the internet, I feel like 99% of the internet supports me on this not being the best Zelda game.
Yeah, but that's more the Zelda curse being enacted than anything else. Like, because Skyward Sword came out, and then everyone was like, ugh.
Skyward Sword is bad too.
It's not that bad.
Let's put Skyward Sword on the list then. I'm willing to put that on the list over Twilight Princess.
Yeah, but then
Josh, again, you're not allowed to make edits after the fact. We're stuck with these 20. You can't just bring one out of left field.
And we don't want to have like a 20-minute discussion about Fi. So
we may have to just table this for now and see what other games make I think we need to see what other games get locked and cut and see how many spaces we have left before we can really make Twilight Princess a guarantee.
Guarantee cut. I'm like terrified to go to Mass Effect 2 after I crapped all over Twilight Princess.
Mass Effect 2 is actually cancer. No, I'm just kidding. Let's just go. What if we start from the top and then just work our way down?
Fine. Dot hack infection. I say no.
I say no as well because I don't think it stands on its own.
I also say no. I've only tried one of the Dot Hack games briefly, and I didn't find it interesting.
I really want to play it. I really want to play the series at some point, but that's just the thing is that it is part 1 of a larger story.
This was yours, Marcos, wasn't it?
I mean, personally, I think you're all terrible people. However,
I know I'm a terrible person, but I'm not voting for Dot Hack is all.
I'm sorry, Marcos. You had my back, and I betrayed you.
I know. Don't worry. I'm gonna twist that dagger.
Betrayal. You're gonna twist the dagger that's in your back.
Yeah, because I will say, probably for this list, I would say no as well. Only because, like, you're right. Like on its own, it's what is it like a 10-hour game? Even that, like, you could probably beat the game in like 2.5 hours if you're fast enough. And I mean, I saw it was just an amazing game, and was not even just an astounding soundtrack, but just the story behind it, the time it came out, and just being something very interesting that if it killed you in the game, it kills you in real life.
No, that was really cool. I always wanted to play those because the premise of it was so interesting. But kind of what you guys are saying with it being a small part of a big whole, it very quickly became overwhelming because I felt like I had to catch up on numerous games instead of just experiencing one.
Yeah, like I would like if for them to release a like just a massive dot hack game where it has all the games in one.
Please.
Or even better yet, just don't even have 4 discs, have 1 disc, and it just like starts right after the next one.
Pretty cool.
If a dot hack game like that came out for one of the dot hack sagas, I'm not really sure how the games are organized into stories or even what characters are in what game. But if something like that happened, that was a compilation of past dot hack games, I would definitely give it a shot because, again, I haven't played much of any dot hack game, but there was sure a bunch of them, and I know people were definitely into them. So I would at least want to check it out, see what just buy the game, play part of the compilation, check out the show.
So no.
Yeah.
Okay. 999999999.
99999. Yes.
No. VRL belong to this list instead.
No, because you need to play 999 first.
VLR. Whatever.
VOR. I'm gonna again without throwing the words back. If Chrono Cross doesn't stand on its own because you have to play Trigger, then you need to play 999 before VOR. There is no argument against that makes sense.
I mean, we discussed this in the previous episode. I like VLR more than 999, but I think 999 is super good and would not mind to see it on this list. And I think we should discuss it later.
What do you think?
I'm putting down a weight.
I hate the weight.
I love the weight.
Fine. We'll move on then. Bastion.
I like Bastion, but I don't think it's essential to play. So I'm going to vote no.
I agree with Peter.
I know this is not going to make the top 10, and I'm willing to fully readily admit that. And I'm not even really willing to fight with you guys about it. Unlike some people who are going to fight for games that don't belong on the list, I will not do that. I will just state that Bastion is a really fun game. I think the storytelling
It is.
and how it's all constructed is extremely interesting and a lot of fun. And because of that, it was one of my favorite games of the last generation.
I think Bastion's fun and the weapons and skills are interesting and it's worth playing, but I don't think it's a top 10 must-play RPG, so I don't think it goes to the list.
I agree.
Same.
All right, Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
All right, this is one of my babies. I really love Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It's an incredible encapsulation of the entire series with references to for every prior Castlevania game. Alucard's one of the most entertaining player characters to control ever. He can transform into multiple forms. He has a huge variety of customizable equipment with special moves and super moves and magic and sub-weapons. There's so many fun ways to play that game. The castle is huge and gothic and fun to explore with great music. It's a great Michiru Yamane soundtrack. And I know this game's probably not going to survive. Oh, well, maybe it will. The votes are coming in, and it looks like it's a maybe. And I replay that game at least once every 2 years, and every time it's fun. Just because Alucard is so fun to control, that castle is so huge and cool, and there's a lot to like about Symphony of the Night.
I only played it for the first time on the Halloween episode we did, and I readily admit that I suck at it. I suck at 2D side scrollers in general. But
2D side scrollers are my lifeblood besides RPGs.
And I dug what I played, and I think it's an arc. It is the trendsetter for that Metroidvania genre going forward. It's the reason we're getting Bloodstained, which was awesome, and a little bit we got to see at E3. It's just that I think
I got to shake Igarashi's hand at E3, and
dude,
I still haven't watched that hand.
I gotta pick, man. He was very gracious.
He was very nice to all of his awkward fans, and I can't wait to play Bloodstained. But for staying in the present, Symphony of the Night's a super good game, and I like it a lot, and I also vote yes.
So I'm voting yes, Symphony.
I have no problem with it being on the list. I am just going to say my rebuttal of I was overall. I played it for the first time at the same time Peter did. Um, I was overall underwhelmed and slightly disappointed. Um, it is one of those things that, importance-wise, when you look at the genre, it single-handedly, in a lot of ways, sculpted that genre. And sadly, basically, the genre has been just Castlevania. But um, it did a good job doing that. The only issue that comes in for me is kind of like Marcos was saying with Xenoblade Chronicles X, when you play all the stuff that comes after it and you see the improvements and the little bits and pieces here or there, the magic of what the original one is kind of lost.
I don't agree with that, man. Like I loved the 6 or 7 handheld Castlevanias that followed in Symphony of the Night's footsteps, but I don't think any of those characters were as powerful or as interesting as Alucard. Like even like Shanoa is awesome. She's the main character in Order of Ecclesia, but she only has combinations of 3 items and only a handful that can go on each of her three equipable positions. Alucard has weapons and spells and sub-weapons and transformations that like he has more variety to his character and a pretty interesting arc on his own, I would say. That is unmatched by any Castlevania protagonist and a lot of other video game protagonists in general. Like you can get into the weird, like his weird personality and whether he changes or not, and the stuff about his parents. But I think he is one of the most fun to control RPG characters ever, and that's part of why I keep going back to that game.
Like I said, I have no problem with it being on the list. I think it's much more deserving than other games that we still have left to discuss. It just, I will throw out that people, if they have not played it before, that they might be better off playing newer games from the series. That's all I'm saying. That's just my small caveat on it. And if you have played other games in the genre, or other games in that series, and you've enjoyed them greatly, you might find those more rewarding than going back to the old one. But I'm fine with it being on the list. This one you and I can agree on, though, Diablo 3.
Diablo 3 is fantastic.
I love me some Diablo 3.
Marcos?
It's true.
Diablo 3?
Never played it. Have no opinion.
Okay.
Throw it on there.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like it's 3 yeses and a no, so it makes it, and I'm quite pleased about this.
It's a really good game.
Even with the shaky start at the beginning, where everybody really talked mad crap about it, I still thought it was fine back then. And since then, they have fixed every complaint and then gone leaps and bounds beyond to make an unbelievable game.
I don't agree with all that. I thought it had a lot of problems at the beginning, especially since, like, to me, a Diablo game or even a loot RPG in general doesn't really begin until you are in the middle of that loot hunt. And in the original version of Diablo 3, everything was weirdly gated. The difficulty system was not well designed. The Inferno difficulty setting was a disaster. It had a number of problems. But then, after the fix made with the Reaper of Souls patch and second and expansion, it just became the best loot RPG ever made. Everything was fast and furious. You could customize your difficulty. You could cut.
Movie sucks.
Look, well, you can't make a fast 5 though, because the party size is limited to 4 in Diablo 3.
Ooh, snap.
But it becomes. I think I compared it. I used the same comparison last episode. It becomes like an arcade game, just total chaos.
Definitely with the riffs.
Riffs are these like in and out timed events, and you can either like. Oh man, I'm stuttering. I'm so excited thinking about Diablo 3.
You're gonna go play it after this podcast.
Maybe.
He's
and the way that they set up seasons is even interesting. How they're gating and creating new content to keep the game fresh and interesting without a subscription model or a free to play model. I wish they had. I bet they wish they had added some paying elements to Diablo 3 after the auction house failed. But you can listen to our BlizzCon podcast if you want to hear my specific thoughts on that.
Very close to having to do another one of those.
Yeah, you think we should?
Oh, absolutely.
I'd be interested in doing a follow-up BlizzCon podcast.
Every year.
It would probably air in like November, but whatever. Back to Diablo 3. Diablo 3 is great. The loot is super fun. The multiplayer is awesome, either on console or PC, and it's a shockingly good example of a game that had a rough start, but then improved over time. And I don't know, maybe if Destiny had a follow-up like that, then it would still be on this list, but it isn't.
Destiny 2 someday.
You think Rise of Iron is going to be your go-to, Josh?
I legitimately love Destiny.
I know you do.
I in a lot of ways I don't even compare Diablo to Destiny. I think the only thing really you can compare it to is Borderlands.
That's fair enough.
And I think at the end of the day, I think Borderlands did a really good job with their art system and all the kind of minutia of it. But at the end of the day, the shooting's just not as good. And you can complain about a lot of things in Destiny. I'm fine arguing about most of them. But at the end of the day, it's built on the Halo system, and there's not much better than the Halo system.
Yeah, well.
So... But I think...
But neither Halo nor Destiny is on this list.
No, to answer your question about Rise of Iron, I am going to say it's going to take another great step, but it's going to take Destiny 2 to be able to truly fix the issues that they made with the beginning portions of Destiny.
Nope. Okay. I was, curious.
Yeah. Because there's just stuff that's inherently built in there that I don't see... They would have to change too much, so I think they almost have to have a pseudo-clean slate to be able to fix it.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah, so now we have 6 locks. So we're over half. Running out of space. We still have 1, 2, 6. We have a lot of games still. Grandia.
Never played it.
I've never played
No
it.
opinion.
It's a pretty good RPG. Game Arts Saturn game that was ported to the PS1. I think it's pretty good, but I would not put it on a list of must-play RPGs.
Was this your game again, Marcos?
Yeah, it was. Figures.
The combat's pretty good.
Oh, nuts.
It's got really good combat.
Yeah, the combat's great. I mean, personally, I can't imagine people having the patience to play this kind of game. I mean, it's as linear as it gets. Like, it's a straight line to the very end, no backtracking. Like, it literally locks you out. You only have a forward momentum. I mean, maybe that's what people would like.
Interesting.
Yeah, like once you hit like certain spots in the map or whatever the story, it will literally just lock out like stuff previously. And I mean, maybe like I said, maybe for some people that's a good thing. I guess for this list, it might not be one of the most important games to play, but if you were to come to me for my list, this would be one of my top 10, maybe even top 5.
Wow, that's high praise.
I mean,
it's a good RPG. It's charming. It has maybe some of the worst non-Resident Evil voice acting on the PlayStation.
Yeah.
But
what are you talking about?
No, it's right up there with Resident Evil 1 and Mega Man X4. It's bad, but it's an entertaining game. I like Grandia, but I would never put it on a list of my top 10 favorite RPGs or a list of 10 must-play RPGs. So I'm voting no.
Yeah.
I'm kind of torn between a yes and no. I feel like Marcus, you did a decent job, but like, as much as you said it was the top 5, I feel like it's not like your end all. It has to be on the list for you.
Well, on this list, yeah, but on my top 10,
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So we're rolling with a no on this one. Everyone?
I'm consistently no on it.
Consistently.
Yeah, I'm not going to change from a no.
Oh.
I switched over to no just because gotta move on.
Oh, I'm excited just to move on just to see Mike.
Okay, let me remember my alphabet. E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Right.
So after Grandia comes Kingdom Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can I go first on this one?
If you go first, that means he gets a rebuttal. That gives him a lot of strength.
Okay, fine, Mike. Why do you not like Kingdom Hearts? Because I've never understood this.
I love Disney movies, and I have loved them most of my life. And I think Kingdom Hearts disrespects their good name in a lot of ways. It's most, again, maybe this is just a recurring refrain from me, but it's I have a lot of my issues with it are mechanical reasons. Its combat is always awkward with bad platforming and bad environments. Like the Tarzan stage is just you switching between like three jungle backdrops until Clayton decides to attack. And like the platforming in the Aladdin and Alice in Wonderland stages is so bad that it's an actual obstacle rather than an element of challenge or something that adds visual interest. And the combat is it's really uneven to me. It feels either too hacky slashy or too ultra specific as not to just to gate you away from content. Like I never got a handle on the combat, and it always felt just samey to me the whole game.
Okay.
And again, like the Disney, I liked seeing the Disney environments because it's like, oh, these are firing off the neurotransmitters in my brain from when I was a child that loved these movies and still enjoy them. But just the Disney environments there were so empty and boring, and with really uninteresting like vignette stories within each one, that it, if anything, it maybe not, saying that they damaged my memory of them is too strong, but it did not, like, playing that first. I've only played the first Kingdom Hearts game, and I didn't finish it. I got to I want to say like it was a giant flying space library.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a thing in the second half of the game?
That sounds like the final boss, but
I think the Beast was in my party, and he had recently joined.
Hollow Bastion.
Yeah.
Yes, which
Hollow Bastion.
honestly, Hollow Bastion is one of the better areas in the game.
Okay, I don't remember much about the story at that point, but that is around where I stopped playing.
So sorry, you finish.
But the game does have good music, and
Yes.
I usually don't really think about voice acting when I play a game, and I know you talked about the voice acting a lot in the first part of this
Huge names
podcast.
for the voice
They have a
actors.
top tier cast in every game in that.
Well, they
series.
they have the greatest male voice actor of all time in it, Dan Castellaneta. But
True,
he
this is why I'm sorry to interrupt again. I have strong. This is my favorite game franchise of all time. I have very strong thoughts about Kingdom Hearts. I love these games to death, and why I don't agree with you that it's disrespectful to the Disney memories, because I mean they went to the trouble of getting the original voice actors where they could. Like I love the fact that James Woods is willing to do Hades whenever he gets the chance to, even if James Woods kind of went off the rocker recently. I love the fact that they got where they could. They got the original actors where they couldn't. They used their TV counterparts. There seems in Kingdom Hearts 1 especially to be a very constant effort to make the Disney parts feel integral to the experience, whereas in every Kingdom Hearts game afterwards, much as I like them, they're a bit more of an afterthought. Because Kingdom Hearts 1 is...
I don't think bringing back voice actors should be an important consideration for how good a game is.
All right. Well, then let's ignore that then.
I honestly, Mike, to be fair, I don't think that is fair to say, because I've sat on almost 50 episodes of this retro podcast. Everybody but me wants to freak out about the music, how amazing it is, which I understand. I'd never give you guys crap because it adds an element to the game, and it makes it well-rounded. It adds to the general feel and your experience, and by the same extension, you have to extend that to voice
ultimately,
actors.
And Kingdom Hearts,
ultimately, this is a difference in taste and preferences. I don't think voice acting is very important, but many other people do.
And I think that voice acting is critical to the experience because bad voice acting can ruin a game. And I think the fact that with Kingdom Hearts they took an almost Disney movie-esque approach to its direction and script is really interesting to me. Like Kingdom Hearts would probably function as a cartoon.
I don't think it has great voice acting. Like I think they made Squall and Tifa boring, even though they did use appropriate voice actors for them.
Well, and let's also take into account though that in the first Kingdom Hearts game, this was the first time we heard those characters voiced. and they definitely grew.
Oh yeah, I guess it did predate Advent Children. Yeah.
By like 4 years, Mike.
Mm.
And they grew into their roles as they went. I'm not saying that's not the case, but it is kind of where it started. So as for why I think Kingdom Hearts is an essential game, as opposed to just a game I really love, Kingdom Hearts 1, you can pretty much see the direction Square would take for the next decade, right in that one game. It's
too many zippers and over-exaggerated fashion features.
All of that stuff. Yep, all that stuff. Love it or hate it, Kingdom Hearts 1 is Square Enix. Yeah, well, it's a Squaresoft game, but you get what I'm saying. It is pretty indicative of the direction that company will be going. And we can disagree on the gameplay mechanics. I think the combat in all the Kingdom Hearts games is pretty good. 1's combat is flawed, but it's better than the DS game's combat by like many, many miles. But like,
keep going.
Why is the DS combat bad? Because try controlling it.
No, like why is it being better than bad combat important? I think the combat's bad in a vacuum.
I think the combat's good. I think Kingdom Hearts' combat it just hits my sweet spot in terms of how much, because I don't like character action games very much. I'm not a big Devil May Cry guy, and I'm not really a big Dynasty Warrior.
I love Devil May Cry as well.
I played the first game. I liked it. I don't like that. That's neither here nor there.
That's fair. Yeah.
For me, Kingdom Hearts strikes the perfect balance between a hack and slash game and a character action game, where there is just enough character inputs and stuff for you to get better at the system, but you can still play it like a hack and slash when you want to. There are harder bosses in the game that will challenge your reflexes and kind of force you to master the systems, but to play through the normal game, you don't have to ever do that. I think it's a really good beginner action game. I think it can teach if you really get into the first Kingdom Hearts, it can help teach you to get better at action games. And if you want to just play through the story and get through it, then you can do that too. I just think Kingdom Hearts 1, the first game, is the complete package. It's the one game in the series where the story is actually impacted by the Disney elements. The Maleficent is the main villain for a good chunk of the game.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Billy Zane shows up.
We don't care about spoilers on this podcast. Billy Zane by now, Josh.
Billy Zane shows up eventually, and it's awesome. I think the combat's good. I think there's enough challenging bosses. It's still kind of got that Squaresoft level of like there's some secrets to find. There's rewards for exploring and mastering it. The platforming isn't the greatest, but it's still at least it's still a little bit more world interaction than you would get in the later games. I think there's some pretty decent level design, actually pretty good level design when you get to Hollow Bastion and the end of the world. And
so the last couple stages have good level design, but it's okay.
There is bad level design in the first Kingdom Hearts. I will never defend Atlantica. I hate Atlantica.
Atlantica stunk. I remember. I think
Atlantica is far and away like I was playing the HD release for the first time, and I just told my roommate, lock the door because I am going to be screaming.
I remember not liking Atlantica, but thinking that Tarzan was the worst one because it was just a couple empty rooms that you had to run between.
See, I used to not like the Tarzan level, but having played it a few times since then, it's actually grown on me. I like them. I don't know. Deep Jungle.
So it's Stockholm Syndrome. That's why you like these games.
Well, I mean,
look, we're not going to convince each other. I think that the entire series is incomprehensible for story, and I've only played the first one at length, but I thought the combat was bad and didn't care for the original characters either. I don't like Kingdom Hearts 1, and it soured me on the rest of the series. I don't know if I'm ever going to play another one, but I know a lot of people really like it. I don't want to begrudge them for liking it. And if this game gets 3 yes votes, I'm not going to fight it anymore. But I just think that it has a lot of caveats, and it did not serve or make me think better of any of the Final Fantasy or Disney elements that it borrowed from. Even though I love Final Fantasy 1 through 10 and love a host of Disney movies. But yeah, for me, I think the best part of Kingdom Hearts is the soundtrack, which I know is making Josh roll his eyes right now.
It's a good soundtrack. I'll agree with that.
No, you can't hear it. But I'm not interested in playing any more Kingdom Hearts games, even though I may be interested in listening to more Shimomura music. But I know that my opinion is not the consensus on this podcast, and it's probably not in the mainstream in general either. But I'm not a Kingdom Hearts fan. That's not going to change anytime soon.
It's all right.
Where do you weigh in, Marcos?
Uh, I think Kingdom Hearts belongs on the list. I mean, yeah, no, it belongs on the list. It was just such an impressionable game. Like, yeah, you get solid voice acting, a crazy cast, but like seeing a Disney RPG like this like show up one day, and I remember just seeing it. It's like, why is Goofy holding like a shield? Like, what's Donald doing? And when I finally played it, it was actually a lot of fun. I like the story. I like the ending. I love the little cliffhanger. Just like, oh, where does it go from there? And all the other extra things in there. See, for the battle, this was a weird thing. At first, I hated it, but as time went by, I actually really enjoyed it. However, like, yeah, no, I really did enjoy it, especially when it got to the Coliseum matches, when you started fighting like more powerful like bosses like the Ice Titan and Sephiroth.
It's the best take on Olympus Coliseum in the series because you actually can use it to grind if you want.
Yeah, and I just really enjoyed fighting like the Ice Titan, being able to block at the right time and just like negate like most of the damage with a good timed block. A good timed block was like the most satisfying thing.
I legit broke a controller on that boss. Oh man.
The first time I fought Ice Titan, I was like, okay, well, this is going to be a bad time. Until I started like, timing my blocks, and I was like, all right, this is good. This is very good.
On my proud mode run, I marched in there at level 99 and was just like, let's do this.
So are we voting yes or no on this? I think we're spending too much time on Kingdom Hearts.
So I just want to weigh in slightly. I strongly disagree with Peter about it being a complete package.
Okay.
I do love Kingdom Hearts. I will admit that. And kind of what Marcos was saying, where when it got announced, it kind of blew my little kid's mind when I was a kid. And I got ridiculously excited, played through it, ripped through it, really, really liked it. But as a kid, you kind of ignore a lot of the things the game's missing. And I think that's really very, very obvious when Kingdom Hearts 2 comes around. I enjoy that Disney was kind of the main focus for the first one. The combat is kind of crap, and I will admit that. And that's why in part 1 I was really fighting for 2. I think it's much easier to put 2 in the top 10 than it is to put 1.
And I love 2 as well. Don't get me wrong, Josh. And I think for me it goes back to my my idea of what constitutes essential. I really do. I am the kind of person who wants to play things in order, and I really think you should in this case.
But ultimately, I would say yes to Kingdom Hearts because it does have a very special place in my heart. Sorry, Mike.
It's fine. I can't win every fight, even though I know I'm the only person who knows this game is bad. But whatever.
It's all right, though.
There's a better Kingdom Hearts game that could be on this list.
Yes, there is. It's Birth by Sleep.
I would love for someone to explain the Kingdom Hearts storyline to me without.
I did at one point, and then you got upset with me for explaining it, and then you.
No, I got upset
on Skype on me.
Like if we chill out at E3 and have like a few drinks, then we can talk. We can talk Kingdom Hearts.
After a few drinks, I can be talked into anything, so I'm going to decline on that.
Ooh.
Okay, well,
I like that even more.
Can
we just skip the Kingdom Hearts talk then?
We're gonna share a hotel room.
We shouldn't have a discussion on informed consent on this podcast.
All right,
but it looks like Kingdom Hearts made the list, much to my chagrin.
We have 3 spots. Did we actually talk about Mass Effect 2 earlier?
No, we haven't.
We talked about it last time.
Okay, so Mass Effect 2 is the next one.
We have 5 more games to talk about.
We have 6. Yeah, 5. Yes, 5. You're right. Twilight Princess and Fess are on hold.
We technically have 7 sitting around though.
Yeah, we have 5 to talk about still, and 4 maybes on our list, so 9 total for 3 spots.
Crap. Okay.
I mean, you already know my thoughts on Mass Effect 2, so I'll just leave it to you guys.
Mass Effect 2 has to be on this list.
I think
Mass Effect. RPG.
I think Mass Effect 2 is a very good game. How is it not an RPG? There's levels, there's customizable skills, there's customizable equipment. There's a party that you manipulate. There's a party system that you manipulate.
Because like you, I can be a stubborn old bastard sometimes.
All right, sure. You're like 14 years old. You can't be stubborn old bastard yet.
Yeah, I'm a 14-year-old who's old enough to drink. Yeah, that's how this works.
Yep.
Oh yeah, because everybody starts drinking when they're of age. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Fair enough.
All right, Marcos. I feel like you're gonna have to be.
I like. Well,
Voice
let
of
me talk about. Let me talk about Mass Effect 2 briefly. I think Mass Effect is a good trilogy in general, and Mass Effect 2 is the best of the trilogy in part because it has, I feel, the most interesting cast, and you go sort of like Persona 4, you can go in depth into each cast member with their specific like character quest, and it lets you get into the cast in a really interesting way. And also it's sort of relieved of the burden of being a first game or a final game because it doesn't have to introduce a complicated world or characters, and it doesn't have to draw a conclusion to its epic story. It has the the benefit of not needing a strong beginning or a strong ending.
It has Empire Strikes Back syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. It has dark middle chapter bonuses, and as such, it is sort of the easiest one to pick up and play. And the combat, which I agree sometimes sort of devolves into corridor shooter with superpowers, even though it is RPG elements that determine those superpowers. It's consistently really fun shooting, even though the world of Mass Effect is just awesome and of an absolutely fantastic sci-fi world that I can't wait to revisit in Mass Effect Andromeda later.
Yeah, Mass Effect 2 has one of the best intro sequences ever in a game. And it starts at like a dead sprint, and I don't think it really slows down. I think it's fantastic through and through.
Oh, Josh, what did you design your Shepard to look like? Or what does he or she look like?
He's the standard chap.
I made mine look just like Gomez Adams, and it was the best decision of my life.
Did you say Gomez Adams?
Yep, I sure did. Yeah, so like bushy mustache, pale complexion, sort of like parted hair, had him go very renegade. And yeah, I basically just imagining the male Shepard as a completely out of control Gomez Adams was very appealing to me.
You get to headbutt a Krogan in that game.
That sounds like a bad idea.
I feel like that's all that needs to be expressed about this. This thing's fantastic.
And we haven't really talked about karma systems on this podcast, but I think that Mass Effect, even though it's pretty binary and disguises itself as good and evil when really it's just sort of harsh or nice, I think it's a really fun one to play around with, just because of the situations it puts you in. Like if you remember during the Garrus character quest, if you go Renegade Shepard, then you like encourage his revenge tendencies and have a really badass shooting scene. But if you do the good version of the Paragon version of that scene, you keep getting in the way of Garrus's gun while he's negotiating with his target. And there was so much tension to both the Renegade and Paragon versions of that scene. It feels so much better and more natural than other karma systems in video games. So even though ultimately it doesn't change how the story goes most of the time, and it is it's ultimately pretty binary, unlike some other BioWare games that have very complicated good or evil choices. But I really thought the Paragon Renegade system worked better than average for a karma system in a game.
Yeah, I don't care for karma, like my binary moral choices in games in general, and BioWare's games in particular. I think it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Even in games where I ostensibly like the dynamic, like the law chaos system in SMT, I'm still not really a fan of how they implement that as a gameplay mechanic.
It's unfortunate when most of the time it's binary, and a lot of the time when it isn't binary, it's completely nonsensical.
Mm-hmm. Look, what rubs me the wrong way about recent BioWare is the trend of you get a one word to describe what you're going to choose, and then it's not really indicative of what the character's actions are actually going to be. I much prefer it when you're given the whole dialogue option, so you can actually plan ahead for that. Because I mean, I agree that it's user friendly.
I can respect that, but it really sucks in the days of voice acting.
I mean, why not? Why that? They're gonna have to read the line anyway.
Because then
might as
they
well
read
just
it
write
out
it
loud, and it's like, all right, well, I already read this. You don't have to read this.
Well, I mean,
so we got to bring it to a vote.
Yeah.
Marcos, are you gonna let it through, or are we gonna put it into the maybe pile?
I'll put it into the maybe pile for now.
All right.
Way to go, Mike. Let's have a wait option.
No, well, in that case, Marcos can vote no, and then it'll still go into the maybe pile. And next on the list.
So tell me about Alana's favorite game.
Skies of Arcadia is a hella good traditional RPG. I talked about it at some length in the previous episode. Unbelievably beautiful world map, really good turn-based combat. I really like the characters in general. They're and even though they're not very complicated for the most part, except for maybe Drachma's motivations are a little complicated, but it's a game that has it's bright and colorful and fun. Has a real sort of spirit of adventure to it that I really love. We talk about this a little bit on an upcoming episode that's not about Skies of Arcadia, but Skies of Arcadia does come up. And ultimately it's a traditional turn-based RPG with sky pirates and beautiful floating islands, but I think it's absolutely worth playing for fans of traditional Japanese RPGs. It's super, super good. I'm voting yes. I'm not going to raise hell if the other three of you vote no, but I think that game belongs on the top 10 of RPGs.
I'm voting
I've
no.
never.
Yeah, sorry, Peter. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I've never played it. I really want to.
I'm voting no because I've never played it, but there's games that are left on the list that I want on the list.
Yes, that's my same response.
Only 3 games left and only 3 slots left. So
here's a really easy
and
one.
I think
We're gonna say I'm guessing no to Spelunky because you guys are gonna say it's not an RPG.
I don't think it's not an RPG. I just don't think anyone needs to play it ever.
It is the best game. I'm not gonna say that. It is a really, really good game. I love Spelunky. That's a hard yes for me.
I'm sure it's fine. I just don't think it's an essential.
I'm willing to do my same thing I said to Bastion and say everybody should experience the game, but it doesn't belong here. So that's fine.
Fair enough.
Now on to Marcus's darling, Steambot Chronicles.
Whew. About time.
Tell us all about Steambot Chronicles.
Well then, no, I'll make this very brief. If you like that more or less the binary decision in Mass Effect 2, you're gonna get that in Steambot Chronicles as well, because you are given the same story plot for most of the game. Just continue on, but the decisions that you get in it, you can literally call them Paragon and Renegade, because you can turn your character into a complete jerk, and it gets to the point where you think that, oh, maybe it's offering me these decisions, but the character will do that 180, or another character will intervene and say, hey, that's not funny, do this instead. But once you commit to something, you must commit to it, because that's your decision. Especially when one occasion where the game asks you, do you want to go with the main lead back to a certain town, or do you want to go with some other chick? And if you choose some other chick that you don't talk to as often, you will go back with that other chick, while the main lead will end up being she becomes depressed about it. And it was like, wow, that was very very sad. That actually hit me in the heart. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, this is one of those games. I feel like you mentioned this even back when we started planning the podcast as a whole, and I feel like it somehow has come up.
Which I should mention was 4 or 5 months ago.
No. I mean retro as a whole, a year and a half ago.
Right. April, May of 2015.
Yeah,
Good
this
times.
is a game that I've heard you pitch and talk about and say amazing things about for a year, and I have to apologize. I still have not played it, but every time you talk about it, it fully convinces me that it's a game that I have to experience. So I have to throw my full support as a full yes, because the level of passion that you have when you talk about this game, it's like truly infectious, and it sounds like a really good game.
We had an editorial about this game like earlier.
Yeah, a month or two ago, we Robert Fenner from our reviews team, who has been on a couple retro episodes, wrote an editorial about it. And yeah, I'm changing my vote to a yes too. I've only played the first hour and a half or so. I've only played the first hour and a half of the game, but it is a quirky, colorful RPG so far, and I think I've only really hit one good evil decision, and they were so comically opposite. They're almost the opposite of Mass Effect's karma system, because with Mass Effect, you it's basically just sort of caring about others or not caring about civilian casualties, but with Steambot Chronicles, they're sort of over the top crazy. It's like almost like instead of like, lawful evil versus chaotic evil, it's more like Batman versus the Joker. and it was really quirky and colorful and fun, and had this weird undertone of darkness with the amount of absolutely bat crap crazy evil things you could do. So I have not played a ton of it yet, but I am still intrigued, and I think it is a good game. And I'm also seduced a little bit by Marcos's love for it. It's infectious.
I am completely seduced by Marcos's love for it. Plus, I'm trying to throw him a bone for supporting me throughout this podcast. But
it's very infectious.
But for real though, I do think it's a unique choice for our list. The way I think about it, it has kind of been omnipresent since Retro Encounters started, and you feel like one of these days I'm going to end up playing it. So yeah, let's put it on there.
Cool. Last game that we have not talked about yet from the top 20 is Wild Arms 3.
Which I have also not played, but I plan on buying it now that it's on PS4. Because
I have played the first couple hours of Wild Arms 3. It has a very cool beginning, but after that just seemed a little boring. I'm voting no. It looks neat, but I don't think it probably is a top 10 level RPG. So I'm voting no on it, especially since we have so many good games in that maybe pile that I care much more about.
That I'm doing the same thing I did to Skies Arcadia. I'm going to say no for twofold. One, because there's other games, and then also I feel like if I was going to get behind any Wild Arms, it'd be Wild Arms 1.
Well, I thought Wild Arms 1 was sort of okay as well. I don't know. I'm not super high on the series in general, but I think Wild Arms, man. That's the remake of 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Rudy Rough Knight is a great name for a main character, by the way. But anyway, that's Wild Arms 1. Wild Arms 3, I think it has a really cool first hour, but I didn't love it beyond that first hour, and ended up not continuing with it. I have it on PS2, and so this is probably right around 10 years ago. So I'm voting no.
For myself, I would still say yes. However, it's being trumped as no. But for my 2 cents, like, if you were to play any of the Wild Arms, I would recommend 3, because I think it really captures that Wild Wild West kind of feeling and the JRPG-ness. Yeah, you get Will Smith in there as the main character. And it really captures the desolateness of the the wasteland, and where's the ocean? That's gone. It's just a
run from both the living and the dead.
It's basically Mad Max, but with anime cowboys with magic guns.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty much just artifacts.
Which is a pretty solid start, but ultimately,
that's a pretty solid summation of Trigun you got going on there.
Yeah, the whole Wild Arms series is Trigun as hell, especially the third one when everyone uses a gun, and because like in Wild Arms 1, like the main character uses swords and shields. It's weird. But like Wild Arms 3 is not bad, but I don't think it's special, so I wouldn't put it on this list.
So we now officially have a top 8. We have 2 spots left. We've talked about all the games. So it's time for us to kind of quickly, hopefully, deliberate over the maybes, which are Final Fantasy Tactics, Persona 3, Zelda Twilight Princess, 999, Skies of Arcadia, and Mass Effect 2.
The only game on the maybes list that I really think really deserves to be put into this top 10 at this point is 999. We love it. We love the Zero Escape series has been one of RPG fans' darlings on the site for a while. I played them for the first time last year and was just absolutely floored by I think it's some of the best video game storytelling ever. Third entry notwithstanding, but it's 999 is so goddamn good.
I'm willing to support 999 if either Tactics or Mass Effect 2 make it on the rest of the list.
At this point, dude, I'm kind of tuckered out. So go to do.
I really like 999. I would not mind seeing it on this list. I would prefer Final Fantasy Tactics or Skies of Arcadia, but if I get 999 and a game that is not Zelda, then I'm okay with this.
You people in your 3D Zelda hate, man.
I'm willing to fight fight for every game as long as Zelda's not on the top 10.
Peter, I will.
You deserve.
I will copy paste 999 in there right now if you agree to cut Zelda Twilight Princess.
I said I'm not fighting for anything except 999. So go ahead. I already got Kingdom Hearts on the top 10. I'm fine with anything at this point.
So 999's out. We're down.
No, 999 is in.
Or sorry, out of the choices. Sorry, running.
Sure. Okay.
We're down to Persona 3, Final Fantasy Tactics, Arcadia, and Mass Effect 2. Three of those. Arcadia would be the one at the bottom for me that I care about.
For me, Persona 3 is the one at the bottom. But I like the other three a lot.
Why don't everybody say their favorite instead of the bottom? That seems better.
Okay, all right. So Peter, of the four remaining, which one's your favorite?
I mean, I would have to say Persona 3 because I don't like Mass Effect. I haven't played Skies of Arcadia, and I don't love Tactics as much as everyone else does.
Marcos, what's your? Okay, I'm sorry, man. I'm gonna rush this a little bit.
You're
Marcos,
good. You're good.
Marcos, what's your favorite of those four?
You know, if I really had to choose a favorite, even though I haven't played this at all, from what I have seen, I think this is a very interesting game that I would definitely play and probably rate it highly. Is Mass Effect 2.
Oh,
nice. Yeah,
I would probably pick Skies of Arcadia, but I really like all four of these games, so this is a tough choice for me.
My 1 would be Mass Effect 2, and my 2 would be Tactics.
See, my number 1 would be Arcadia, and number 2 would probably be Tactics.
Fight.
Well, okay. Let me slow down a little bit. Am I the only person that would put Am I the only person with Arcadia in the top 2?
It's not even in my top 3.
It would be third on my list by virtue of it being a game I'm interested in.
Okay, and Marcos, is Arcadia in your top 2 or bottom 2?
You know, man, I said no.
Okay, so yeah, all right. I'll officially retire Arcadia with sad eyes. Sorry, Alana, I tried, but yeah, looks like Skies of Arcadia is gone. Rats.
So I have a crazy idea. Why don't we do Tactics and Mass Effect 2 and drop Kingdom Hearts?
I am in favor of this.
Let's not do that.
What about you, Marcos? What do you think?
I'm gonna say let's not do that.
I have no problem dropping Persona 3 because we do have Persona 4 on there.
I'm not gonna fight that.
And
the
hard thing is I think Tactics and Mass Effect 2 are so drastically different games.
They're completely different games.
Well, here's the thing.
One's an action-based Western RPG, and one is a tactics-based Japanese RPG.
But we already have a Final Fantasy on the list. That's the thing.
That's the stupidest reason in the world. I want Mass Effect to be on the list, but I hate that that's the reason that it could be on there.
I mean, it's the only reason it should be on there. But
you know, am I the only person that really wants Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the list?
No, I like it being there.
I'm cool with that being dropped for those two.
All right. I would pick Final Fantasy Tactics ahead of Mass Effect 2, but I really like Mass Effect 2. Josh, I'm not betraying you here. The only reason I would have it second to Final Fantasy Tactics is because, like, FF Tactics is a top 10 game for me, and Mass Effect 2 is maybe just a top 15 game for me.
Well, both of them are wonderful games to me. I have no problem.
So
it's
that's
splitting hairs
hard
for me.
You know what? I want to keep Castlevania up there, and I would vote FF Tactics ahead of Mass Effect 2. Yeah.
All right, who's Marcos? Tactics or Mass Effect 2?
Mass Effect 2.
Damn.
Peter.
Tactics.
All right.
I will acquiesce. For the sake of a tiebreaker, I would acquiesce, but...
To drop
I will
Kingdom
switch
Hearts? Is that what you're acquiescing
no.
to?
I am not going to ever acquiesce that because Kingdom Hearts is my favorite game on
What
the
about
system.
Xenoblade Chronicles?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
999?
because it's late and some of us have work in the morning, and because I really like Mass Effect 2, and don't feel I'm not super gung ho about FF Tactics ahead of Mass Effect 2. I'll vote for Mass Effect 2. I'll switch my vote.
Awesome. So we have a top 10 list in a semi-specific order.
Finally.
1 being Chrono Trigger, 2 being Persona 4, 3 being Diablo 3, 4 being Diablo 6.
You just Diablo 6.
Diablo 6.
Yeah, Josh just put this in his own order because whatever.
All right, so in no specific order, in all honesty, Chrono Trigger, Persona 4.
I'm gonna move it. I'm gonna switch it to alphabetical order.
Diablo 3. I'm reading. Please don't do that. Final Fantasy 6, Mass Effect 2, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Steambot Chronicles, Xenoblade Chronicles, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, and last but not least, Kingdom Hearts. So that has been the official deliberation of esteemed members of Retro Encounter as they develop the Essential 10 list.
We're all still friends, right?
Yes. If Zelda made the list, then no.
Okay, I'll live with that. You hater.
But
you David hater.
The only game on that list I feel bad about is Kingdom Hearts, but I will just have to live on Kingdom Hearts Hater Island.
I really hope, and I think that everybody on this podcast really hopes that all of you listeners enjoyed this. The nonsense and arguing, I think it was a fun ride. We would love to both hear on the boards what you thought of this process, but also we would love to hear games that we should have put on there that you think were worthwhile, or call us out for being crazy because we had some off-the-wall insane idea about games. In the meantime, we have Valkyria Chronicles going on right now.
Yep, those episodes. I think the next episode that we have a couple episodes recorded already, but the next one that we're gonna air is the Dreamcast Encounter episode where we talk about great Dreamcast RPGs, and then we're gonna do 2 Valkyria Chronicles episodes in a row.
And then we have Danganronpa in September, and then we're currently in the process of deciding what we're gonna play in October. But as always, we have really exciting stuff moving along for the rest of 2016, and we're already in plans for 2017. So everything's just going to keep getting better as we go on. But yeah, thank you for listening. We really, really hope you enjoy it. Please get out there, rate, review, write emails in, write on the boards. Thank you for listening.
Bye, everybody.
Nice.
Don't play Kingdom Hearts.
Play all the Kingdom Hearts.
Feels like I've known you for so long, but there's always something wrong. I could never understand what this feeling was. Searching for its meaning, I went